Welcome to a video that has been long overdue, ladies and gentlemen. And in this video, I want to talk about Johnny and his arc in Season 5 and how everything came full circle for him. And I remember doing a plethora of videos before the season even dropped, saying the biggest thing that Johnny has had to deal with, his biggest struggle across the entirety of this show, isn't just, you know, moving on from the weight of the past, whether that pertained to his father, Sid, Kreese, his mother, but it also pertains to his sons as well. And the reason I say sons is because more or less, Miguel and Robbie are both of his boys, and Robbie is his son by blood, and Miguel is his son just by the way in which it plays out. You know, not all blood is family. You know, it's that kind of quote where blood makes you related, loyalty makes you family. There's some great quotes out there that could perfectly encapsulate everything about that. But I want to really sort of delve into how Johnny managed to achieve both things this season. And I talked about this a lot in my recent Chosen Live about a couple of weeks ago now, so not really recent. But I talked about how this season was about growth, it was about maturity, it was about the characters using the lessons of the last 4 to 5 seasons to overcome the obstacles that have been presented to them and go forth in a new and rich and challenging way. And I think this is what this show needed, because in my opinion, one of my biggest gripes with Season 4 was that it was becoming a bit stale. It was like, okay, there's a misunderstanding at play here, we're dragging this out again, and this season finally buried the hatchet between Miguel and Robbie respectively. About time. And Johnny was absolutely vital and integral into that happening. And you can go all the way back to when the season opens up, when they're in Mexico looking for Miguel. And again, I didn't really like the fact that Johnny didn't tell Robbie in the first place, and because I wanted Robbie to kind of make that choice himself. I wanted him to willingly choose to go, and I kind of got that in a way. Robbie willingly chose to stay and start, you know, making things right. So in a way I got it, just not in the way I expected. And then Miguel went on his arc, discovering who he really is, where he came from, and then coming to the harsh truth and reality that was his father. And then we get that great moment at the end of episode 2 where Johnny screams Miguel and Johnny hug and they embrace, and it's a great full circle there. And then the score that plays is the last time we saw Miguel in Season 4, and it's just a great full circle. But I think this season is setting Johnny up for a new kind of role. The entirety of this show, Johnny has been a sensei and he's been a teacher. Now he's going to be a proper father, and I think this season really laid the groundwork for that. Not just a father to Miguel, not just a father to Robbie, but the inevitable third child that is on the way, and of which I believe could be a girl. I think that could make for some great comedic banter. I would compare it to Logan and X-23 from, you know, the movie Logan. I think it could be very similar to that. And I think if you're looking at a potential way of describing what Johnny's kid could potentially look like with Carmen, I'd say Devon. Devon is a very good example of Johnny raising a daughter. I think that's the kind of kid that we're going to get. And imagine being the person that has to go to the door with Miguel and Robbie answering the door at the same time as its older brother. Yeah, I don't envy whoever ends up in that position. Now, obviously, it's again contingent on however long the show plays out for, but I really enjoyed Johnny's arc this season. I thought it brought everything full circle. I think William acted his bollocks off again, as he does every season, and it was a great way to not repeat the cycle. The scenes between him and Carmen, where Carmen is, you know, getting ready, she's preparing, and Johnny's overwhelmed. He's like, okay, I don't know if I can do this, I'm out of my element. And even Shannon picks up on it within seconds, and she's like, okay, you're feeling overwhelmed again, aren't you? It's the same face expressions and mannerisms that you did the last time, and then you turned tail and ran. And what's key here is Johnny's willingness to make the decision, no, I'm not going to run away, I'm not going to abandon anyone, I'm going to stay here and cement myself as part of this family. And that was what Johnny's arc was for the first half of the season. Now obviously in the second half of the season he's still a father, but that's when his sensei role sort of comes back in, and taking the fight to Silver and all that kind of jazz. But it's paid off in full circle in the finale when he sees the picture of the unborn baby, and it motivates him, it G's him up after taking an absolute beating it just kicks him into overdrive and into a fifth gear where he feels like he's untouchable and he can do anything. And the whole theme of this season, not just maturity, Chosen even said this himself. Your father beat me because he was fighting for, I was fighting against. In Karate Kid 2, Daniel was fighting for, not against. And in that moment, Johnny was fighting for. He was fighting for Carmen, his second chance at, you know, a love story, if you want to be completely, you know, objective about it. His second chance at being there for Robbie, his second chance at being there for Miguel. You know, the opportunity to break the cycle and have a family that he never had. And take this family that isn't, in his words, the traditional kind of family, and make them a unit and prepare for the newborn child that's yet to come. Like, it all comes full circle in that one scene where he just lays the smackdown on the fist. And it's just highlighted when he's reunited with Carmen in the finale, and he says, I was fighting for, and that was what drove me forward. And I think there's moments across this season where there's just subtle little nuances that I absolutely love, where Johnny, he's out of his element. You know, he's out of his element. And this is a great sort of thing that I love about Cobra Kai, where it touches upon real world stuff, where so many people will be out of their element. Oh my god, I'm going to be a dad, I'm going to be a father, what is this? And they've had no one to really look up to. I mean, when you think about Johnny's situation, who has he had to look up to as a father figure? Kreese? We know how that went. Sid? We know how that went. So who has he really got in his life that he can sort of emulate as a father figure? No one. So Johnny is breaking the cycle, and he's doing it the hardest way, because there's no one he can base his ideals and philosophies off of in terms of fatherhood. And it's all about what he's learned through Chosen or Daniel. I think in a really roundabout sort of way, I think Mr. Miyagi could have been a great father to Johnny too. And in another timeline, you could have had the same situation that's playing out with Miguel and Robbie, you could have had that with Daniel and Johnny 30 years ago. The exact same kind of situation. So it speaks levels of Johnny's character and his determination to not just break the cycle, but break the cycle without any role models himself, and actively choose to go, you know what, I'm going to be there for my kids, I'm going to do this, but at the same time, I'm still going to honor my friend's wishes with Daniel and that evolution and that process. And he's finding the balance of being a sensei and a father, and that's something that Johnny has always struggled with since the start of this show. And not to mention choosing between Miguel and Robbie. Throughout the entirety of this show, whenever he chooses Miguel, Robbie suffers. Whenever he chooses Robbie, Miguel suffers. In this instance, he's able to bring both of them together. And his Mexico trip of going to get Miguel, there's a line of dialogue that I freaking love. It's when he says to Robbie, I'm done leaving you at home. I know I'm here for Miguel, but I'm not leaving you at home either. You're coming with me too. And even though it may not have been the father-son trip that Robbie had envisioned, it is a father-son trip nonetheless. And at the end of the episode 1, the premiere, when it's just Robbie and Johnny stood there on the beach, you know, with the Coke and the beer over their wounds, and then just bonding and having a father-son moment. And then cut to episode 2, when Robbie does the little bait and switch with the chili, and he's like, you know, that's my boy. It's moments like that. And then Johnny reuniting with Miguel. There's so many beautiful moments. Or the breadstick scene. It's such simple scenes go such a long way. And I really, really hope, and I'm going to break off my little scripting and notes here. I really, really hope that people see these kinds of scenes and give Cobra Kai the respect it deserves, because for a long time, people have treated this show like it's nothing more than comedy. And yeah, it is cheesy, but it's a fun kind of cheese. Once you get into it, you're hooked, and it's just a fun show that you can rewatch again and again. And it's not deep in terms of storytelling, but its characters are rich, its characters are very deep, and a lot of them are so relatable to today's society and to today's world. I would love to be a teenager growing up with this show right now, and I think about all the people who are growing up with this show. This show could inspire them to take up martial arts. This show could inspire them to be a better person before they reach adulthood. There's so many lessons you can take from this show that are genuinely applicable to the real world. Not many stories you can do that with. Most stories you go to just be entertained. This show you can absolutely apply some of the teachings and philosophies to your own life, and that's what I love, and that's what Johnny does throughout this season. Guys and girls, as always, I rambled on for at least 10 minutes, but jump in the comment section down below. Let me know if you agree with any of the points I raised. Let me know what you thought of Johnny's arc this season. Let me know what was your favorite Johnny moment this season, and how do you feel about where Johnny's going overall? And do you think that he can only go forward, or do you think he's kind of reached the potential of his arc, or we still have a ways to go? And I think the next level to his arc, past Miguel and Robbie and Carmen, is when the child arrives and he gets an opportunity to not make that mistake again. And he will have Miguel with him, he will have Robbie with him, he'll have Carmen, he'll have Chosen, and he'll have Daniel. And it's great. Hell, even Mike Barnes, potentially. You never know. Guys and girls, I will see you all in another video soon. And you got 5 seconds to tell me where that kid went, or I'm going to shove that surfboard so far up your ass, your friend's going to be surfing you.